I really enjoy playing a variety of games, and it looks like Dungeon Coach's DC20 is the next hottest system out there that I'm going to be checking out. GameMasters here, and at the time of recording this video, DC20 is currently live on Kickstarter. It had a goal of $20,000 to get it going, but get this, it's currently sitting at $1,270,000 with 19 days to go. When DC20 hit about $500,000, that's when it kind of got on my radar. And I like Dungeons & Dragons well enough, but $500,000 is a big number. 1.2 million is a larger number, and it's certainly a number that got me to start really looking into the system. I think many people are fed up with the tactics that Wizards of the Coast has been attempting to employ, from the OGL issue from a few years back to the Vecna Eve of Ruin pre-order issues as recent as just a few weeks ago. Of course, there's been a variety of things in between all of that. And I think that is part of the reason that folks are flocking to DC20. It also helps that Alan from Dungeon Coach has established a public history of homebrewing. So him making this leap to crafting his own system, it's rather exciting. He has a great library of how the system works over on his channel. And I'm not going to pretend to be able to talk better about the mechanics in this game, but I do want to offer up what DC20 actually means in a much more grand context. We've been chatting about this over in my Discord, and be sure to give that a look as we can get pretty lively over there. The link's going to be down in the description. But what I pointed out was that Alan from Dungeon Coach has, at the time of this recording, he's got about 60,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel. And that's 6 times more than what I have. In terms of YouTube, however, that's still kind of a small channel. By comparison, Dungeons & Dragons, their official YouTube channel, has almost 500,000 subscribers. But remember that the DC20 Kickstarter is right at 1.2 million with 19 days to go. And that's a fair amount of money. I mean, sure, to a company like Wizard of the Coast and Hasbro, it's likely just the lunch bill for Chris Cox. But to many of us, that's a fortune. What this translates into: how many other YouTubers out there are now looking at DC20 success, looking at what Bob Worldbuilder, that's a hard one to say close together, did with Delve, which hit just under 400,000. They're likely going, whoa, small creators can make some bank detailing their game? Now, sure, there's a major portion of that money that goes into the production and the ultimate fulfillment of that game, but that's still leaving a fair chunk left that goes into the creator's hands, given it needs to be a solid game to begin with. And while there have been certainly more creators out there attempt to make it on Kickstarter that have failed, what Alan has done could easily be seen as a lesson in marketing. Alan created the Dungeon Coach channel on YouTube in 2019, has over 450 videos where he goes over tips and tricks for running role-playing games, but too, he does some major deep dives into his homebrew creations. And it is from those homebrew creations that DC20 came about. And it's a good, crunchy system. It's chock full of detail. While it leaves things to chance, I mean, it does use dice to randomize things after all, it also details out some specifics about what your options are. For example, grit points. If you take damage, you can spend a grit point to reduce that damage. DC20 also has just enough familiarity about it so that it's going to be super easy to sink your teeth into and start playing. Imagine a typical dungeon delve that has twisted corridors and large expansive rooms full of darkened corners and tall standing stalagmites. Water drips in a pool of water somewhere in the distance. From behind one such stalagmite, you think you see movement. You know that combat is about to begin, so you're going to look at your line of sight. Perhaps the monster is under half cover, maybe 3/4 cover, or fully concealed. Or perhaps after the battle, all torches have been blown out and or doused in that small pool of water, and you've gone from holding a bright light in front of you to total darkness. Does anyone in your party have dark vision, or perhaps do you even have blind sight? And this is what I mean by DC20 having familiar elements in it so that you can sink your teeth into it and start playing easily. And make no mistake, this is not a homebrew of optional rules to Dungeons & Dragons. DC20 is an improved tabletop role-playing game from the get-go. As Alan states, DC20 is a fresh take that empowers groups to learn quickly, open up their creativity, creativity and tell epic stories with their friends like never before. There are only 4 attributes in DC20. You have might, agility, charisma, and intelligence. It makes use of your standard selection of role-playing dice, the D4, the D6, the D8, D10, D12, and a few D20s. Yet, while things are familiar, you'll immediately note that there are also some major differences. How you build your character is different. There's a fantastic emphasis on skills, abilities, and professions like blacksmithing or even brewing beer. Yeah, you want to brew beer for your party? DC20 goes into that. The big question to ask yourself is this. Actually, it's twofold. Are you happy with how D&D 5th edition works? But 2, are you satisfied with how Wizards of the Coast treats its customers? Currently, there are just over 12,000 backers willing to give DC20 a try, and I'm one of them. If you want to check it out, I'll leave a link to the Kickstarter in the pinned comment down below. If you'd like for me to do some deep dives into the game's mechanics, let me know that down in the comments as well. But also, too, be sure to check out Dungeon Coach's videos covering the rules and how the game itself works. I mean, he is the creator and the authority of DC20 after all. While what we have is an alpha version of the rules, it's a very robust alpha with more than enough to get you started. Of course, as I mentioned, it's likely that some elements may change between now and its touted mid-2025 release, but those that back the Kickstarter will get access to the beta rules, which will reflect updates as they are made along the way. It looks like DC20 is going to be published under the ORC license, which will allow you to create content for it and, of course, make a few bucks yourself. There's going to be a DC20 magazine releasing starting on July 1st to Alan's patrons over on Patreon, and that's going to be a monthly digital PDF. DC20 has in the works 2 supplements for adding social and exploration mechanics into the game. Social mechanics will produce to players elements like combining dice rolls with role-playing and can provide words that you can speak to the NPC that will in turn trigger that NPC to change their disposition, kind of depending on how you roll, high or low. Exploration mechanics addresses things like travel time, exploring dungeons, but being able to explore an entire dungeon with an epic skill challenge. Exploration mechanics also details out the resting system as well as what you can do during downtime, but also kind of how you can do whatever it is that you're going to do during that downtime. There is also going to be a conversion document that lets you convert your 5th edition games over to DC20. Oh, and I've seen the DC20 alpha version of the monster guide. This lets you create up your own monsters for the game, and I gotta be honest, it goes into a hell of a lot more detail about custom creating monsters than D&D does. It full-on explains and provides a health formula for monsters, how to determine the monster's total hit points, health stats, when to add bonus hit points if in the event that the monster is underpowered, and I can only imagine how cool this conversion guide is going to be once it evolves into its released version. It looks like, too, that the product timeline we will see the DC20 Monster Manual due out in 2025, as will be the Advanced Player and GameMasters guide. Then in 2026, they plan to release the DC20 campaign settings. So this is not just a quick rule set, one and done, take your money and run setup. There is a plan in place to provide years worth of game material to you, and I really think that that's part of the excitement too. We're getting in on the ground level of something new. Sure, there is a risk involved, but from everything that I've seen, things are progressing at a very good pace. DC20 isn't Dungeon Coach's first Kickstarter either. Last year, Alan did Alcander's Almanac of all things, which had a goal of $10,000, and it hit just over $250,000. What that shows is that Alan kind of knows what he's doing. All of this is to say that this looks to be quite an interesting game. It's got some major funding behind it, and I'm excited to be a part of its growth. I look forward to watching it develop and grow, and as mentioned, if you're taking an interest in it, I'll leave a link to it, to the Kickstarter down in the pinned comment. My name is Brian, and I want to thank everyone for watching, but I especially want to thank my YouTube members and Patreon supporters. Thanks to their contributions to the channel, I didn't need to take on a sponsored ad for this specific video, and they also allowed me the freedom to create up a document called Fixing Vecna, where I go in and buff up and homebrew up the Vecna Eve of Ruin adventure so that it kind of flows better and makes a little more sense. You can grab a copy of that over on my Patreon, and that's for paying members, and I'll leave a link down in the description. We also hang out in a very lively Discord, where we chat about all kinds of topics, such as how to improve Vecna stats to be more godlike, but also to DC20 and its mechanics, so be sure to join us there as well. Remember, if you'd like to know more about DC20, let me know which aspect you'd like to hear about down in the comments, and I'll cover that in a future video. Until next our paths cross, may you play a good game.